The clink of silverware against porcelain was the loudest sound in the room. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind that should have felt ordinary comforting even. The golden light of the dining room chandelier cast a glow over the table, bouncing off the half-empty glasses of water, the untouched breadbasket, and the roast chicken that had cooled too quickly. Daniel sat at the head of the table, staring at his plate, but not really seeing it. His mind had been running in circles for hours, replaying the conversation he'd had with the realtor the day before. The contract signed, the keys exchanged, the house their house, no longer his. And then came his sister's voice, soft at first, then sharper as if trying to pierce through his silence. "I've decided," Clara said, her fork poised mid-her, her eyes shimmering with something between hope and exhaustion. "I'm moving back in, here, to the house." The words hit like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples across the fragile calm. Daniel's chest tightened. He lifted his gaze slowly, as if by moving too fast, the whole illusion of normalcy would shatter. Across the table, Clara's eyes were bright, a fragile smile tugging at her lips. She looked tired, a kind of tired that no amount of sleep could fix, but her voice carried a strange determination. "I can't keep paying rent downtown," she continued, placing her fork down with a quiet finality. "And honestly, I miss it here. I miss us. I think it'll be good for both of us." The air seemed to thicken. His mother froze mid-sip of her tea, her brows arching in quiet surprise. His father cleared his throat, but said nothing. Daniel's fingers curled into fists under the table, nails biting into his palms. If only she had said this 2 days ago. If only she had looked at him with those pleading eyes before he signed the papers. He forced a smile, though it felt like glass cracking inside him. "Clara." His voice came out hoarse, unsteady. She leaned forward, her hope shimmering brighter now. "I've already thought it through. I'll clear out the guest room. And, Clara," he interrupted, sharper this time. The smile fell from her lips. The silence was deafening. Their mother set her teacup down carefully, the porcelain clinking too loud in the quiet. "Daniel," she said softly, her eyes searching his face. "What is it?" The truth pressed against his throat, desperate to claw its way out. But the weight of it, what it would do to her, to them all, was unbearable. His heart pounded so loudly he was certain they could hear it. He swallowed. His mouth was dry. "It's just—" "That's a big step, Clara. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't sure," she snapped, her voice brittle with emotion. "This house is our home, Daniel. Don't you want that too?" Home. The word sliced through him like a blade. His father shifted in his chair, clearing his throat again. "Maybe it's not a bad idea," he said quietly. "It's been a long time since the two of you. Well, since you lived under the same roof." Daniel's head dropped. He couldn't meet their eyes. He couldn't confess that the roof no longer belonged to them, that in a matter of weeks strangers would walk these halls, paint over the memories, and make it theirs. Clara reached across the table, her hand brushing his wrist. "Please, Danny," she whispered, using the nickname she hadn't called him in years. I need this." Her voice broke on the last word. His chest ached. If he told her now, it would crush her. But if he didn't? The weight of silence stretched on. His father's fork scraped against the plate. His mother fidgeted with her napkin. But all Daniel could hear was the sound of his own heart, thudding, breaking, caving in. He pulled his hand back gently, retreating from her touch. Let's talk about this later," he said, forcing calm into his voice. Clara's face fell. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced with confusion, then suspicion. "Why later? Why not now? What aren't you telling me?" The words clung to the air, heavy and sharp. He wanted to speak, to explain, to say everything. But the lump in his throat kept him silent. His mother's voice broke the tension. "Clara, maybe your brother just needs time. We don't need to rush decisions." Clara's chair scraped against the floor as she stood abruptly. "No," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been waiting for years. I've been alone for years. And for once, I thought maybe I wouldn't have to be anymore." Her words hung like smoke, suffocating. Daniel looked up at her then, and for the first time in a long while, he saw not just his sister, but the cracks in her loneliness, exhaustion, the quiet desperation of someone searching for belonging. And he realized he had taken it from her. The knife twisted deeper. He opened his mouth. "Clara, but she shook her head, her eyes glistening. "Forget it. I shouldn't have said anything." She turned, her footsteps echoing against the wooden floor as she disappeared down the hallway. The slam of her bedroom door reverberated through the house, through his chest. The table sat in silence. His parents exchanged wary glances, but said nothing. Daniel's throat burned. His hands trembled in his lap. The walls of the house seemed to close in. Every framed photograph, a reminder of the home he had just sold. Childhood birthdays, Christmas mornings, summers in the backyard, all trapped in these walls, soon to be erased. He stared at the untouched food, the flickering candle in the center of the table, the shadows dancing against the walls. His mother reached across and placed her hand on his, gentle but firm. "Whatever it is, Daniel," she whispered, "you'll have to tell her. Sooner or later." He nodded faintly, but the truth lodged deeper in his chest, because later, he knew, would be too late. The morning light streamed weakly through the half-drawn curtains, casting pale shadows across the dining room, where last night's storm of words still lingered. The plates were gone, but the silence remained. Heavy as dust in the air, Daniel moved quietly, barefoot on the wooden floors, each creak sounding louder than it should. He hadn't slept much. Clara's voice had replayed in his head until dawn. "I just need this." The way her eyes had searched his face, searching for safety, for home, it carved into him like a chisel. He drifted toward the living room, his hand brushing over the doorway as he entered. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and something older, an undertone of time itself. He let his gaze sweep across the room. The floral couch where his mother used to sit, knitting. The chipped coffee table scarred by the rings of countless mugs. The old rug, its colors fading, but its pattern etched into memory. And on the wall, the photographs. He stopped. His chest tightened. There they were, framed pieces of another life. Clara at 8, grinning with missing teeth. Himself at 10, standing awkwardly with a baseball glove too big for his hand. Family vacations, birthdays, the forced smiles of holidays. He touched the frame of one photo gently. The glass was cool beneath his fingertips. In it, Clara leaned on his shoulder, her smile wide and carefree, her eyes filled with light. He had forgotten she once looked at him like that. Now her eyes looked different, tired, hollow, desperate. The weight of the signed papers pressed against him. The house was already gone, sold. These walls would soon belong to strangers, and these photographs, these echoes, would mean nothing to them. He imagined the new owners painting the walls, throwing out the rug, tossing the photographs into boxes or worse, trash bags. The thought made him feel suddenly sick. "Danny?" The voice startled him. He turned. His mother stood in the doorway, her robe pulled tight around her, her eyes soft but cautious. She looked older in the morning, light, her hair grayer, her hands trembling slightly as she held her mug. "You're up early," she said. He forced a smile. "Couldn't sleep." She nodded knowingly, sipping her tea. "Clara was upset last night." He looked away. "I know. She's been through a lot these past few years. Losing her job, the breakup, everything. Coming back here, It's not just about the house. It's about healing. Her words cut deeper than she knew. Healing. Home. Two things Daniel could no longer give his sister. His throat tightened. Mom, what if this house isn't the answer for her? Her eyes softened, but her voice grew firm. Sometimes the answer isn't in the walls, Daniel. It's in the people inside them. Don't push her away. He wanted to scream that he hadn't just pushed her away. He had sold her hope, signed it away for a check and the chance to start fresh. But he couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he nodded silently. His mother studied him for a moment longer, as if sensing the weight he carried, then turned and padded softly back toward the kitchen. The silence returned. Daniel moved on, climbing the staircase slowly, his hand dragging along the banister, polished smooth by years of touch. Every step creaked with memory. He reached the landing and paused, staring down the hallway lined with doors. His own room, untouched since he'd left for college. Clara's door shut tightly, a faint line of light seeping out beneath it. He turned away. He pushed open the door to his old room. The air smelled faintly of dust and old books. Posters still clung to the walls, their corners curling. The bedspread was faded, but the shape of it pulled him back instantly. Late nights studying, laughing with Clara when they were supposed to be asleep, lying awake listening to his parents argue downstairs. He sat on the edge of the bed, running his hands over the quilt. It was like being haunted by versions of himself. He no longer recognized Dot, and then he whispered. To no one, to the walls themselves. I'm sorry. The words barely escaped, but they hung in the air. His gaze drifted to the window. Beyond it, the backyard stretched out, golden with morning light. He could almost see it, Clara chasing fireflies in summer, the sound of their laughter rising into the night sky. He blinked, and it was gone. The weight of memory was suffocating. He stood abruptly, his chest tight, his breath shallow. In the hallway, he lingered outside Clara's door. He could hear the faint sound of movement inside, the scrape of drawers, the muffled thud of a box hitting the floor. She was already preparing, already believing she had a place here again. He lifted his hand, ready to knock, ready to tell her the truth. His knuckles hovered inches from the wood. His heart hammered, but then he heard her laugh. Soft, almost fragile, but real. It had been so long since he'd heard her laugh like that. It froze him. If he told her now, that laugh would vanish. He lowered his hand. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, he turned away, heading back down the stairs, the echoes of his own footsteps sounding like accusations. At the bottom, the front door loomed. He stared at it for a long moment, then opened it, stepping out into the crisp morning air. The house stood tall behind him, bathed in sunlight, but to him it no longer looked like a home. It looked like a monument, a tomb of all the lives they had lived within it. And soon it wouldn't even be that. Daniel shoved his hands into his pockets, his breath clouding in the chill. He told himself he'd find the right moment to tell Clara. He told himself he'd make her understand. But deep down, he knew there would never be a right moment. Only the crash of truth when it finally broke free. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the streets into rivers of silver. Daniel walked without purpose, his jacket already soaked through, his shoes squelching with every step. He didn't care. The storm outside felt like a mirror of the storm inside, and for once, the world seemed to match his chaos. Streetlights blurred through the sheets of water, glowing halos distorted by the downpour. Cars hissed past, their tires cutting through puddles that splashed against his legs. He shoved his hands deeper into his pockets, his head bowed, as if he could drown the weight of his secret in the relentless rain. Why did she have to say it now? Clara's hopeful voice echoed in his head. Her laughter from earlier that morning haunted him. She was planning, believing, rebuilding, and all on the foundation of a lie he hadn't yet confessed. The rain stung his face. He kept walking. At the corner of Oak and 7th, he stopped beneath a flickering street lamp. His breath came in ragged clouds, his body shivering. For a moment, he tilted his face to the sky, letting the rain wash over him as though it could strip away guilt, memory, responsibility. But it didn't. "Hey!" The voice cut through the storm. Daniel blinked, lowering his gaze. A figure approached, her outline blurred by the rain until she drew close enough for him to see. She was holding an umbrella deep green, edges dripping with water. And beneath it, a face illuminated by the glow of the street lamp. She smiled. It wasn't a bold smile, not the kind that demanded notice. It was small, soft, almost hesitant. But in the rain-soaked night, it pierced through him with a warmth he hadn't realized he was starving for. "You'll catch your death out here," she said, stepping closer. Her voice carried both concern and a playful lilt. Daniel tried to summon words, but all that came out was a rough, "I'm fine." She tilted her head, studying him. Dark hair clung to her cheeks, damp from where the umbrella hadn't fully shielded her. Her coat was buttoned high. The water dripped down its sleeves. She extended the umbrella slightly, tilting it toward him. "Fine doesn't look like drenched to the bone." Against his instinct, he stepped under the arc of her umbrella. The sudden absence of rain pelting his face felt like a shock. He could hear the softer patter of droplets on the umbrella above, creating a cocoon of sound that separated them from the rest of the storm. For a moment, they simply stood there, close enough for him to notice the delicate curve of her lashes, the faint scent of jasmine rising from her coat, the warmth radiating off her in contrast to his chilled skin. "You don't even have a hood," she said, shaking her head. "What were you thinking, wandering out in this weather?" "I wasn't," he admitted quietly. She looked at him then, not just at him, but into him, as though she could see the exhaustion shadowing his eyes, the heaviness in his posture. Her gaze lingered, soft but unflinching. "Sometimes not thinking gets you more lost than you realize," she said gently. The words stung, because they were true. They began walking together, her umbrella tilting slightly to cover them both. Their shoulders brushed once, then again, sending tiny sparks of awareness skittering through him each time. He tried not to notice, but he did. Every detail. "Do you live around here?" she asked after a few quiet steps. "Used to," Daniel replied. The word slipped out before he could stop it. "Used to?" "Family house. Not far from here." Her lips curved into another small smile. "This neighborhood has good bones. The kind of place you can feel history in the bricks." He glanced sideways at her, startled by the accuracy of the thought. That was exactly how he felt about the house, or used to feel, before the weight of it became unbearable. They reached the corner, and she stopped, turning to face him. The umbrella hovered above them, droplets racing down its edges. "I'm heading this way," she said, pointing down the opposite street. Daniel felt an unexpected pang at the thought of her leaving. It was absurd. He didn't even know her name. And yet, in the middle of the storm, she had created a small pocket of warmth, a pause in the chaos. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer than before. She studied him again, as if memorizing him. Then she extended her hand. "Elena." For a moment, he just looked at her hand, rain dripping from his own sleeve. Then he reached out, their palms meeting. Her skin was warm, grounding, pulling him into the moment. "Daniel," he said quietly. Her eyes softened at the sound of his name. "Well, Daniel, try not to get lost in storms you don't need to be in." And with that, she smiled again, gentle, luminous in the dim streetlight, before turning away. The umbrella bobbed slightly as she walked down the street, her figure shrinking into the curtain of rain. Daniel stood there long after she disappeared, the storm soaking him once more. But something inside him felt shifted, warmer, lighter. It wasn't love. Not yet, but it was something. A spark, a reminder that even in the middle of drowning, someone could appear to offer breath. He shoved his hands back into his pockets, the ghost of her touch lingering in his palm. For the first time in days, the corners of his mouth tugged into something that resembled a smile. But as he turned back toward home, guilt rushed in again. Clara's laughter, Clara's hope, the house he had already let go. The spark Elena had lit collided with the secret he carried, leaving him torn. Fate had thrown him a lifeline in the rain, but he was still shackled to a truth that could break everything. The bell above the cafe door chimed softly as he steps inside, the aroma of roasted beans wrapping around him like a gentle embrace. Outside, the streets still glisten from yesterday's rain, and somewhere deep in his chest, he carries the memory of her smile beneath the umbrella, the smile that hasn't let him go, and there she is, already seated by the window, a steaming mug in front of her, hair falling in quiet waves across her face. She looks up, and the corners of her lips curve into that sane, knowing smile. "You made it," she says. "Wouldn't miss it," he replies, though a part of him wonders why his voice sounds more certain than he feels. He joins her, the scrape of the wooden chair against the floor, punctuating the fragile moment between them. For a while, they simply sit, the silence not heavy but alive, like a string pulled taut between two instruments. The waitress arrives. He orders coffee, black, though he secretly prefers it sweet. He doesn't want to look like a man in need of comfort. So, she begins, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "Are you always the kind of person who rescues strangers in the rain?" He laughs, shaking his head. "You had the umbrella. I was the one being rescued." She tilts her head, mock serious. Maybe it was mutual. Their eyes meet, and the air tightens, not with awkwardness, but with something fragile, something dangerous. The coffees arrive. He wraps his hands around the warm ceramic cup, as though holding it will steady him. "So what do you do?" she asks, blowing gently at her drink. The question should be simple. But to him, it feels like a door opening to a room he's been trying to lock. "I manage things," he says vaguely. "Real estate. Property work." Her eyebrows lift. "That sounds serious." "It can be," he admits, shifting in his seat. He imagines telling her about the house, about the papers he signed just days ago, about the way his sister's voice cracked when she said she wanted to come home. But the words stick like stones in his throat. Instead, he says, "But I'd rather talk about you." "What do you do?" She studies him for a moment, like she can see through the dodge, then relents with a soft laugh. "I'm a painter." His surprise must show because she grins. "Not a successful one, don't worry. I sell small pieces here and there. Sometimes people commission portraits. It pays for coffee at least. I'd like to see your work," he says, and realizes he means it. Her eyes soften. "Maybe I'll show you someday." They sip their drinks. The cafe hums with low chatter and clinking cups, but around their table, it feels like the world has narrowed to two people caught in a fragile orbit. She leans forward slightly, lowering her voice as though offering him a secret. "You look like someone who carries too much." The words land like a stone in water, rippling through him. He forces a small smile. "What makes you say that?" She shrugs gently. "Your eyes, they're always somewhere else, even when you're sitting right here." He looks down at his coffee, the swirl of dark liquid reflecting his silence. His chest tightens, the weight of unspoken truth pressing harder. He wants to tell her. He wants to spill everything about the house, the broken promise, the guilt. But the thought of tarnishing this fragile, luminous thing between them makes him bite back the confession. Instead, he says, "Maybe I do." "But isn't that what coffee's for?" "To set things down for a while." She smiles knowingly, letting him off the hook. "And we'll keep drinking. Hours slip by unnoticed." They talk about books they've never finished, places they want to travel, the absurdity of small talk when bigger truths always loom behind it. He makes her laugh, a light, unrestrained sound that feels like sunlight breaking through storm clouds dot, and yet beneath every laugh, every moment of closeness, his guilt grows louder. Every time her gaze lingers on him with quiet trust, he feels like a thief of moments, of hope, of something pure he may not deserve. Dot as the afternoon wanes, golden light floods through the cafe windows. She leans back, stretching, her smile softened by weariness. "This was nice," she says. "Yeah," he whispers, though the word feels too small. "Maybe we'll do it again?" Her tone is casual, but her eyes are not. They hold something unspoken, the same question he feels pounding in his chest. Is this the start of something, or just a fleeting accident? He nods, almost too quickly. "Definitely." She gathers her things, slipping on her coat. He stands too, reluctant to let the moment end. Dot at the door. Just before stepping into the fading sunlight, she pauses. "You don't have to tell me everything," she says softly, without looking back. "Not yet. But one day you will." And then she's gone, leaving him with the echo of her words, the warmth of her smile, and the unbearable weight of his silence. He sits back down, staring at the empty coffee cups between them. Secrets linger like the last dregs at the bottom of a mug, bitter, unspoken, impossible to ignore. The storm doesn't come with thunder. It begins in silence. He returns home late, carrying the echo of her laughter, the stranger with kind eyes, the stranger who doesn't feel like a stranger anymore. That sound, soft and luminous, still warms his chest as he unlocks the door. For a brief moment, he allows himself to believe that life might still hold gentleness. Then, he sees his sister standing in the dim glow of the hallway lamp. Her arms are folded, her face taut, and in her hand she holds a folded sheet of paper. His stomach drops. "What's this?" She asks, her voice deceptively calm. The paper is the contract, the sale agreement. He must have left it on the counter in his rush earlier. He curses his carelessness, but the damage is already done. He swallows hard. It's what it looks like." Her eyes flash. "Tell me it's not what I think it is." He doesn't answer. The silence stretches between them, sharp as broken glass. "You sold it?" Her voice cracks on the word, disbelief breaking into rage. "You sold our house?" He runs a hand through his hair, heart pounding. "I didn't have a choice." "You didn't?" She cuts herself off, then steps forward, her voice rising. "You didn't have a choice?" "You had every choice in the world. You could have called me, told me, asked me, something. But you went behind my back and God." She presses her palms to her forehead, shaking her head in disbelief. "It wasn't like that," he insists, but even to his own ears, the words sound weak. Her laughter is sharp, humorless. "Not like that? You erased our home, our history, and you're telling me it's not like that?" The house creaks around them, as if listening. Every memory, birthdays, whispered arguments, the night their mother left, the mornings their father never returned from, presses in on him. He feels the weight of it all, pressing against his ribs, making it hard to breathe. "I did it for us," he says finally, his voice low, desperate. "We couldn't keep up. The bills, the repairs, it was drowning us. I thought—" "No," she cuts him off, her voice trembling. "Don't you dare put this on me. Don't you dare make it sound like this was sacrifice when it was betrayal. You didn't trust me enough to even try." He flinches at the word. Betrayal. It lands heavier than any accusation. The air between them thickens, the past bleeding through the present. She looks at him with eyes that once sought his protection as a child, but now hold only accusation. "You know what hurts the most?" She whispers, her voice breaking. "That you were the one I thought I could always count on. You. out of everyone? Her words slice through him, more painful than her anger. He wants to reach for her, to bridge the chasm growing between them, but his hands remain at his sides, useless. The silence swells, broken only by the tick of the old wall clock. Finally, she takes a step back, her shoulders shaking. So what now? She asks bitterly. You've sold everything we had. Where do we go? Where do I go? He opens his mouth, but no answer comes. She shakes her head, tears brimming. You don't even know, do you? You just wanted to escape, like always. You've been running from this house since the day Dad left, and now you finally managed it. Congratulations. The words gut him. She turns away, wiping at her face, leaving him stranded in the ruins of his own choices. He can feel the world collapsing, every wall he's tried to hold together, crumbling under the weight of truth. And somewhere in the distance, in the memory of rain and laughter and kind eyes, he thinks of her, the stranger who made him believe, for one fleeting second, that he wasn't alone in this. The thought is almost unbearable now. How can he hold something so fragile when everything else in his life is splintering apart? His sister speaks again, quieter this time, but no less sharp. You're not the brother I thought I knew. The words land with finality. She moves past him, heading upstairs, leaving him rooted to the spot. He sinks into the old armchair, staring at the floor. The house feels different now, emptier, heavier. Each room echoes with his sister's anger, his father's absence, his mother's silence. And beneath it all, the sound of his own heart, beating too loudly, as if trying to break free from the cage of his chest. He presses his palms to his eyes, fighting the burn of tears. He doesn't cry. He hasn't cried in years. But tonight, the weight of it all crushes him. Hours pass. He doesn't know when he finally moves. When he drifts into the kitchen, when he pours himself a glass of water, he doesn't drink. His thoughts circle endlessly. His sister's broken expression, the contract on the counter, and the memory of that umbrella, that coffee, that fleeting hope, that what have I done? His phone buzzes on the table. He glances at it, heart lurching when he sees her name, the woman from the rain. The screen glows with a message. Had a nice time today. Hope you're okay, Dot. He stares at it, torn in two. One world crumbles behind him. Another fragile one waits before him. But how can he step into it, burdened with all this? How can he let her close when everything he touches seems to break? His sister's words echo like a curse. You're not the brother I thought I knew. And beneath them, her voice lingers too. One day you will. The two truths clash violently inside him, loyalty and betrayal, guilt and longing, past and possibility. Dot. By the time he finally lifts his phone, his hands are trembling. He doesn't type anything. He doesn't know what to say. Upstairs, a door slams shut. In his chest, something unravels further. One more thread pulling loose from the fabric of who he thought he was. The house has never felt so small. The house is quiet, but it's not peace that lingers. It's the kind of silence that hums too loudly, filling every corner like smoke. He lies awake, staring at the ceiling where cracks spread like veins of some tired heart. The clock ticks past midnight, then 1, then 2, each second dragging him deeper into exhaustion he cannot escape. Sleep will not come. Dot from upstairs. Faint footsteps creak. His sister. She's awake too. For 3 nights now, they've moved around each other like strangers sharing a roof, neither speaking, neither daring to break the fragile stillness that separates them. Her silence is sharper than her anger was. At least rage had sound, heat, life. This coldness feels worse, like mourning something still alive. He presses a hand to his face, the words she spat echoing in his mind. You're not the brother I thought I knew. The weight of it pins him down. He wants to explain, to apologize, to scream that he didn't mean for it all to fall apart. But every attempt dies in his throat. The phone on his nightstand glows. A message. Her name. The woman from the rain. Can't sleep either? His chest tightens. He stares at the message, thumb hovering. Finally, he replies, "No, the nights don't end anymore." Almost instantly, the dots appear. "Want to meet?" Just a walk. Nothing heavy. He hesitates, then pulls himself up. Maybe a walk in the cool night air will quiet the storm inside him. Maybe hearing her voice will remind him that not everything in his world is broken. The city streets are nearly empty, slick from a recent drizzle. Street lights shimmer on the wet pavement, throwing pools of amber into the darkness. He finds her near the corner cafe, her umbrella closed, damp hair curling around her face. She smiles when she sees him. Soft, tired, but real. "You look like someone who hasn't slept in weeks," she says gently. He gives a half smile. Feels like it too. They start walking. The air is cool, damp, filled with the faint scent of rain. The silence between them isn't heavy like the one at home. This one feels alive, waiting. "You don't have to talk," she says, glancing at him. "But if you want to..." He exhales, words clawing their way out. "My sister." She found out. About the house. About everything. Her brows draw together. How did she take it? He laughs bitterly. "Like I burned down her whole life." "Maybe I did." She stops walking, turning to face him. Her eyes glisten under the streetlight, sharp but tender. "You're carrying the whole world alone, and you think destroying yourself makes it easier for her? For anyone?" Her words strike something raw. He looks away. "I thought I was protecting her, taking responsibility, being the strong one. But now..." His voice falters. "Now she won't even look at me." She steps closer, her hand brushing his sleeve. "Maybe being strong isn't about holding everything in until you break." The touch, light as it is, steadies him in a way nothing else has. He swallows hard. What if I've already broken too much? Her gaze doesn't waver. "Then let someone help pick up the pieces." For a heartbeat, the world narrows to just her. The warmth of her hand, the intensity of her words, the quiet offer shining between them. His chest aches with longing, but guilt coils tight around it. He steps back slightly, shaking his head. "You don't understand. My sister, she's everything I have left. And now I've destroyed that too. How can I ask for more when I've already failed her?" Her hand lingers in the air where he'd been. Slowly she lets it fall. Because wanting doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. The street seems to pulse with silence after her words, broken only by the dripping of rain from the eaves. He wants to believe her. God, he wants to. But when he closes his eyes, he sees his sister's tear-streaked face, her voice cracking with betrayal. The night deepens. They keep walking, their steps slower now. She doesn't press further, doesn't demand more. Instead, she matches his silence, staying by his side, her presence enough to remind him that not everything is gone. When they finally stop, standing outside her apartment building, she turns to him. "You don't have to choose tonight. But don't shut me out. Please." Her plea is soft, but it lodges deep. He nods, though the knot in his chest remains. "Good night," she whispers. He watches her go, the door closing softly behind her. The warmth of her presence fades into the night, leaving him alone again. Back home, the house looms darker than before. His sister's door is shut, no light leaking from beneath it. He pauses outside her room, hand half raised to knock, but drops it again. He retreats to his own bed, staring at the ceiling until dawn begins to pale the sky. His phone rests on the table beside him, silent now, but the echo of her voice lingers. Wanting doesn't make you selfish. It makes you human. Yet all he feels is inhuman, stretched between two worlds, unable to belong fully to either. The night refuses to end, and when it finally does, it feels like no relief at all. The rain had been falling since dusk, drumming against rooftops and washing the streets in a sheen of silver. By the time they left the cafe, the city felt drowned in shadow. Street lamps glowed like pale orbs, fractured in the slick pavement, while thunder rolled with a growl that seemed to echo the heaviness inside him. He walked beside her, their shoulders brushing beneath the umbrella she carried, though the storm seemed determined to soak them anyway. Every step he took felt like wading deeper into a truth he could no longer outrun. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked softly, her voice nearly lost in the hiss of rain. He nodded, though his throat was tight. "I will be. There's something I haven't told you." Her eyes flicked to his face, shadowed by the umbrella. She didn't press, not yet. That patience of hers, that maddening, beautiful patience, was the very thing unraveling him tonight. They turned down the narrow street toward his apartment, rainwater rushing in small rivers along the edges of the pavement. By the time they reached his door, his hands were trembling as he unlocked it. Inside, the silence was deafening. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and dust, lit only by the soft amber glow of a lamp in the corner. He shut the door behind them, leaned against it, and let out a breath that sounded more like surrender than relief. She slipped the umbrella shut, droplets scattering across the floor, and turned to him. "What is it, really?" He swallowed hard. His chest burned with the words that had been locked away for too long. The storm outside rattled the windows, as though urging him to let it out. "I lied to you," he said finally. His voice was quiet, but the truth made it thunder. Her brow furrowed. She didn't move closer. She didn't move at all. "About what?" "The house," he whispered. "It's gone." Her breath caught, her lips parting in shock. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" He dragged a hand through his damp hair, pacing across the small living room like a man cornered by his own mistakes. "I sold it months ago. To pay debts, to keep us afloat after everything fell apart. I told my sister it was still ours because I couldn't face her anger. I told myself I was protecting her, but really," his voice cracked, "really, I was just afraid of losing her. Of losing everything." Silence pressed heavy between them. The rain lashed harder against the glass. She set the umbrella aside, folding her arms as though to shield herself from the weight of his words. "And me? What about me?" He turned to her, his chest aching with the question. "I didn't mean to drag you into this. I didn't mean for you to carry the weight of my lies. But every time you looked at me with that kind of trust God, I couldn't breathe, because I knew I didn't deserve it." Her eyes shimmered, though not from tears yet. "You should have told me. You should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth." He stepped closer, his voice desperate now. "I'm terrified. Do you understand? I'm terrified of what happens when I try to hold on to something good. The house, my sister, my family. I break everything I touch. And when you walked into my life, I thought, just for a moment, I thought maybe I'd been given one last chance. But how could I let you see me for what I really am?" The words came like floodwater, unstoppable, raw. Years of silence and shame poured from him in a torrent. His shoulders shook, his breath came ragged, and when he looked at her, his eyes were wet, not just from the rain, but from the storm inside him finally breaking free. She stood frozen, torn between fury and tenderness. The thunder outside cracked so loud, shook the lamp's glow, as if the heavens themselves bore witness to his confession. "You're not broken," she whispered at last. He laughed bitterly, though the sound was choked. "Aren't I? Look around. Everything I've touched has fallen apart. My sister barely speaks to me. The place I swore to protect is gone. And now Now I've stained whatever this is with you, before it even had the chance to begin." She stepped closer, her voice trembling with a different kind of strength. "Do you think love is about being flawless? About never making mistakes? It's about truth. And if you can give me that, then maybe, just maybe, we can survive the rest." His breath hitched. For a moment, hope flickered through the wreckage. But then her gaze hardened, her voice faltering with hurt. "But you lied. You let me believe in something you already knew was broken. That's not something I can just forget overnight." The words sliced through him sharper than any storm could. He reached for her hand, fingers trembling. "I'm begging you, don't walk away. Not yet. If I lose you now, I don't know if I'll ever find my way back." She didn't pull away, but she didn't hold on either. Her hand rested in his like a fragile bird, caught between flight and surrender. The thunder roared again, and this time she closed the distance between them. Her lips brushed against his, soft but heavy with hesitation, like a question without an answer. He kissed her back with all the desperation of a drowning man reaching for air, but when she pulled away, tears streaked her cheeks. "You have to prove it," she said, voice breaking. "Not with words. With everything you do from this moment on." He nodded, his chest heaving. "I will. I swear I will." The storm outside raged on, but inside, there was only the quiet tremble of two hearts, caught between ruin and redemption. She turned toward the window, watching the rain pour like a curtain between them and the rest of the world. "I don't know if love is enough to fix this, but I want to believe it could be." He stepped behind her, close but not touching, afraid of pushing her further away. "Then let me show you. Let me earn it. Let me be the man who doesn't run, who doesn't destroy everything he loves." The silence that followed was both unbearable and precious. She didn't answer, but she didn't leave. And for him, that fragile pause, that thin thread of hope, was more than he deserved. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the city clean, while inside, two souls stood trembling in the wreckage of truth, waiting to see if love could rise from it. The morning felt colder than the night before, though the rain had finally stopped. Clouds hung heavy in the sky, swollen with the memory of storms. The house, what little was left of it, carried a silence that suffocated, pressing against every wall like a secret no one wanted to speak aloud. His sister stood by the doorway with a single bag in her hand. She had been packing since dawn. He had listened to the drawers opening and closing, the muted thud of her shoes on the wooden floor, the sound of things being folded and zipped into place. Each sound was a blade, carving away the last ties that bound them. "You don't have to do this," he said finally, his voice hoarse, as though it had rusted overnight. She didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the bag, her knuckles white around its handle. "Yes, I do." He took a step closer. "Please, just let me explain again. Let me fix it." Her head snapped up, her voice sharp as shattered glass. "Fix it? You think there's anything left to fix?" The word struck him like a slap. She set the bag down and faced him fully now, her eyes burning with years of unspoken hurt. "You lied to me. You let me believe this place was still ours, and it still meant something. Do you know what that house was to me? It was the last piece of them we had left. And you sold it like it was nothing." His chest caved beneath the weight of her words. "I didn't do it because it meant nothing. I did it because I was drowning. I thought I could protect you." She laughed, but it was hollow, broken. "Protect me? You don't get to decide what I needed protecting from. You don't get to lie and call it love." From the corner of the room, she watched the woman who had stumbled into his chaos, who had given him pieces of light in the dark. She stood near the window, silent, her hands twisting together, torn between stepping forward in staying out of the storm that wasn't hers to claim. His sister grabbed the bag again, her jaw set. "I'm leaving. For good this time." The air cracked open. His heart dropped into the pit of his stomach. "No, don't say that. You can't just walk away. You're all I have." Her eyes softened for only a fraction of a second before hardening again. "Then you should have treated me like it." The words echoed long after she had opened the door and stepped into the gray morning. He chased after her, barefoot on the porch, the chill of the wet boards biting at his skin. "Wait, please." His voice fractured, loud enough to startle the quiet street, but she didn't turn back. She walked down the steps, the wheels of her small suitcase clicking against the uneven pavement. Every step she took was a nail hammered into the coffin of everything they had once shared. He stopped at the edge of the porch, rainwater seeping into the hem of his pants, his breath misting in the cold. His body wouldn't move. His voice wouldn't carry. And she kept walking until the corner swallowed her whole. When he turned back inside, the house felt gutted, the silence even sharper than before. She was still there by the window, her face pale, her eyes glassy. She didn't move toward him, didn't offer comfort, only whispered, "I'm so sorry." He looked at her, the words lodged in his throat. She was right. "I ruin everything I try to hold on to." "Don't say that," she murmured, but her voice trembled, and in her hesitation, he felt the truth. She wasn't sure she believed her own words. He sank onto the couch, his hands covering his face. The room smelled faintly of her perfume, faintly of coffee, but underneath it all was the bitter scent of emptiness, the kind that lingered when someone left and wasn't coming back. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The house creaked, old wood settling, as if mocking him with the illusion of a home that was no longer his. Finally, she crossed the room, kneeling in front of him, her hand reaching to touch his. "You still have me," she whispered. He lifted his head, meeting her eyes. For a moment, hope flickered, a fragile flame trembling in the wind. But beneath her gaze, he also saw fear. Fear that he would drag her down, fear that his gravity was too heavy for her to escape. "I don't want to lose you too," he said, his voice raw. "Then stop hiding from me," she replied, her voice barely above a breath. "Stop hiding from yourself." Her touch was warm, but the distance between them felt like a canyon. He wanted to pull her into his arms, bury his face against her shoulder, let her convince him he was worth saving. But something inside him cracked, the part of him that had once believed love alone could stitch broken things whole. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "I don't know if I can stay if you keep carrying this guilt like it's all you are." The words stole his breath. He clutched her hand as though it were the only thing tethering him to the earth. "Please don't go." Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. The silence stretched. The walls groaned. And for the first time, he felt the true emptiness within him, the void that no house, no sister, no love could fill until he faced it head on. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain, still clinging to the earth. The world had been washed clean, but inside, he was drowning. The house creaked like an old ship adrift on forgotten seas. Wind slipped through the cracks in the walls, stirring the curtains so they rose and fell like tired lungs. He sat on the couch with his head bowed, staring at the floorboards. Each knot in the wood seemed like an eye watching him, judging him, whispering, "You failed." The silence was unbearable. His sister's absence had carved a hole in the air. No slammed cupboards. No footsteps storming upstairs. Just stillness, pressing hard against his chest. He pressed his palms into his eyes until colors bloomed in the dark. She's gone. She's really gone. And then, like a soft chord breaking the silence, came the sound of the door opening. His heart jolted. He lifted his head too quickly. Breath sharp, only to find her standing in the doorway. Not his sister, but her. The woman with the kind eyes, the one who had walked into his storm with an umbrella, and the patience of someone who knew how to stand in the rain. Gaze found him immediately. Her face was pale but resolute, as though she had been standing outside, debating whether to leave or stay, until something inside her made the choice for her. "You didn't answer my calls," she said quietly. Stepping inside, he swallowed, voice rough. "I couldn't. I didn't know what to say." "You didn't have to say anything." She closed the door gently behind her. The soft click sounded like a promise, or maybe just a refusal to leave things unfinished. She walked toward him, her steps slow, deliberate. For a moment, he thought she might stop halfway, that the distance would remain, but she didn't. She came right up to him and stood there, close enough for him to see the faint trembling of her hands, and then she did the one thing he hadn't dared hope for. She reached down and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, steady, unyielding, as if she had anchored herself to him on purpose. He looked at their hands entwined, her small but firm, his shaking slightly, and the breath he had been holding escaped in a broken rush. "Why?" he whispered, his throat tightening. "Why would you come back? Why would you? After everything?" Her eyes didn't waver. "Because walking away didn't feel right. And because you don't deserve to be alone in this, even if you think you do." His chest caved, a sob pressing against his ribs, though he tried to swallow it down. "I destroy everything I touch. You saw it. My sister's gone because of me. The house, the lies, squeezed his hand, cutting him off. "Stop." The word was soft but sharp, a knife wrapped in silk. "You're not broken beyond repair," she said. "You're scared. You've carried everything alone for so long. You don't remember what it's like to lean on someone. Let me be that someone." Her voice shook on the last words, but her grip didn't falter. He bowed his head, staring at their joined hands. "And if I fail you too? Then at least fail trying to love, not hiding from it." The room blurred around him, his vision stung with tears he hadn't let fall in years. It was easier to stay numb, easier to carry weight in silence than admit he couldn't. But her words cracked, the dam he had built around himself. "You don't know how heavy it gets," he whispered. "Then show me," she answered. The air shifted. He looked up, and in her gaze was something fierce. Not pity, not fragile sympathy, but courage. As if she was daring him to trust her, daring him to believe in something more than guilt. For the first time in what felt like forever, he let the tears fall. They slid hot down his face, dripping onto her hand, but she didn't pull away. She held on tighter, grounding him, her thumb brushing over his knuckles, as if to remind him he was still here, still flesh and blood, still capable of being held. Minutes stretched, filled with nothing but the sound of his uneven breaths and the steady rhythm of hers. When he finally spoke again, his voice was raw, stripped bare. "I don't know how to start over." She leaned down until her forehead rested against his. Her breath warmed his skin. "You don't have to start over. You start from here, with me." The words settled in his chest like a fragile seed, not yet rooted but alive, waiting. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But doubt clawed at the edges of his hope. "And what if I can't be enough?" Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. "You don't have to be enough. You just have to be honest. That's all I'm asking." The simplicity of it broke him. For so long, he had equated love with perfection, with holding the world together by himself. But here she was, asking for none of that, only truth, only presence. He exhaled, shuddering, and finally tightened his grip on her hand. For the first time, he wasn't clutching out of fear of losing her. He was holding on because he wanted to believe. He could choose something different. She closed her eyes, and in that quiet moment, the weight in the room shifted. It didn't vanish, not entirely, but it no longer belonged to him alone. The house still felt hollow, stripped of the warmth it once carried. His sister was still gone, her absence a raw wound. But as he sat there with her hand in his, the silence no longer pressed down like a curse. Instead, it left space, fragile, uncertain, but alive with possibility. "Stay," he whispered. Her answer came without hesitation. "I will." The words wrapped around him like a fragile thread of light in a darkened room. Thin, delicate, but strong enough to hold him in place. He pulled her closer, pressing his forehead against her shoulder, breathing in the soft scent of rain still clinging to her clothes. For once, he didn't try to speak. He let the quiet hold them, let her hand be the anchor he hadn't known he needed. And for the first time, hope didn't feel like a cruel trick. It felt like a hand that didn't let go. The house was gone. What once stood proud with weathered walls and creaking floors was now only rubble, swallowed by silence. The scaffolding had been cleared, the boards taken away, and the empty lot lay open under a bruised autumn sky. He stood there, staring at the patch of ground where years of laughter, fights, and unspoken words had once been stitched into the wood. The cold air cut his breath short, yet he didn't move. Beside him, her hand slipped into his. Warm, grounding, steady. "It's strange, isn't it?" she whispered. Her eyes traced the void where the house had been, but her grip on him never wavered. How something can disappear, and yet still live here. She pressed her free hand against her chest. He turned his head, watching her, the way her hair moved with the wind, the way her lips trembled, as if she was afraid of saying too much. "I keep thinking I should have saved it," he confessed, his voice breaking. "That I should have tried harder, fought harder. Every memory, every promise. Gone because I couldn't hold it together." She squeezed his hand tighter. "No," she said firmly, eyes locking with his. "Not gone. Broken walls don't erase what lived inside them. And maybe the house wasn't meant to be saved. Maybe you were." The words hit him harder than the chill in the air. Saved. He wanted to believe her, but guilt still curled in his chest like ivy. "Do you really think I can just start again? After everything I've ruined?" Her gaze softened, and she leaned closer, so near he could feel her warmth against the rawness inside him. "I don't want you to start again," she murmured. "I want us to start together. Not from the wreckage of the house, but from this moment. From here." Silence lingered, heavy but hopeful, and in it, he realized that she wasn't offering him escape. She was offering him belonging. That evening, they walked the streets aimlessly, side by side. Streetlights glowed golden on wet pavement, and the sound of distant laughter from a cafe spilled into the night air. He caught himself listening, not with envy, but with a small spark of possibility. "I used to think home was a place," he said suddenly, "that if I could hold on to walls and doors, I'd never lose what mattered. But maybe I got it wrong. Maybe home isn't something you keep. Maybe it's something you build." She looked at him, her smile tender and almost trembling. "Then let's build it," she said. "Not with bricks or beams. With mornings and conversations. With choices." He wanted to answer, but his throat tightened. Instead, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, letting the promise settle between them. The next morning brought the unexpected. His phone buzzed, her name flashing on the screen. Not hers, his sister's. For a long moment, he couldn't breathe. He hadn't heard from her since the night she left, her words sharp as shattered glass. He almost didn't answer, almost let silence keep them apart forever. But he did. "Hello?" His voice cracked on the single word. A pause. Then her voice, quieter than he remembered, carrying something fragile. "I came by," she said. I saw the house. Or what's left of it." He closed his eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter for support. "I'm sorry," he whispered. For all of it, another silence, long and heavy. Then, "I know," she said. Her tone wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it wasn't blame either. "I was angry because I thought you chose the house over us. Over me. But standing there yesterday, I realized you've been trying to hold on to too much. Maybe it's time we both let go." He swallowed hard. "Do you think we can?" Her voice cracked. "I don't know, but I want to try." And for the first time in years, the weight in his chest shifted, not gone, but lighter, when he told her, the woman who had stayed, who had chosen him even when he couldn't choose himself. She smiled with tears in her eyes. "See?" she whispered, brushing her thumb over his jaw. "The pieces aren't lost. They're finding their way back. It wasn't easy." Days still carried shadows, moments where guilt clawed back, where silence tried to stretch between them. But each time she reached for his hand. And each time he let her hold it. One night, as they sat in the small apartment he had once thought too empty, he looked around. The mismatched chairs, the flickering candle on the table, the laughter they were learning to share. It was imperfect, but it was alive. "This," he said softly, his voice almost reverent. "This feels like home." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's because it is." Weeks later, his sister came by. She didn't knock. She lingered in the doorway, uncertain, almost timid. He froze when he saw her, heart pounding, but she spoke first. "I don't know if I'm ready to forgive," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I don't want to keep walking away." He stepped closer, his chest tight with emotions he couldn't name. "Then stay," he said. "Not here forever, just stay long enough to see that I'm trying." For a heartbeat, he thought she might turn around. But she didn't. She stepped in, and the woman beside him, the one who had given him her hand when he was drowning, smiled softly, as though she had always known this moment would come. That night, they sat together, the three of them. No grand speeches, no sudden resolutions. Just presence. Just the quiet sound of forks against plates, the hum of conversation slowly learning to breathe. Again, it wasn't a house filled with furniture or history, but it was a home, fragile and real, born not from walls, but from hearts that had chosen not to let go. He looked at the two women, his sister with her guarded hope, and the love of his life with her steady warmth. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was breaking something he tried to hold. He felt like he was building.